Just get water. If you need instead water.
Oh yeah, no, I just grabbed some. There's like a little water dispenser there.
Oh, okay. I'm Jane.
He's here.
Ken is there inside.
Yeah, that's fine. I wasn't sure if they were gonna go back there or what.
This is raining. Oh, hi. What's up? Okay. Okay. All right. No problem. I'll let her know. Okay, bye.
Y'all good, Rainey? Y'all good?
Remember Jane?
So, on my games, said that he's gonna be like an hour late, so if it's okay with you, we'll have him sit at his place until such time that he gets here.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, he didn't let me know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You know what I can do, please? I would, just switch the top page, the sticker with what's there,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and then when Dean comes, you know.
Member James sticker. Oh, he has it already? Perfect, thank you.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I was asking if you're okay.
Oh, Dean stickers.
Yeah, Dean. Thank you.
Lane, I'm gonna start the recording.
Recording in progress.
They can be. If you hit the, oh, you're right, they're not.
Do input or? I can.
I almost got into your seat. That's so funny.
Just to Zoom for 5 minutes and I'll be I'm all set up.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. We're going to get started with our VTA board meeting. It is January 11th, and I am now calling us to order. I'm going to make a couple of quick safety announcements as we get started, and I'm going to ask all of you to momentarily identify your nearest exit. The nearest AED is by the public table in the back of the chambers. Restrooms are outside the double doors and to your left. In the unlikely event we need to evacuate, our assembly area is in the plaza outside of the building's double doors as shown on the screen. And I'd like to welcome the members of the public who've joined us tonight via Zoom, or those of you who are here in person. If you'd like to address the board, you are encouraged to complete a blue speaker card. Those are at the public information table over here in the back. And please submit that completed card to the board office staff before the item is heard. Virtual attendees can use their raise hand function in the Zoom or press *9 if you're dialing in. And we will be inviting those who attend in Zoom to speak first. I'm sorry, people who are in person to speak first, and then we'll go to folks on Zoom. Colleagues, I'll just remind you that you're going to want to keep your mics muted until you're ready to speak, unless you're particularly entertaining tonight. And please call my attention by raising your hand or turning your light on, and I will do my best to keep my eyes open for those of you who want to weigh in on different issues. We have a few changes to the board this year. Carmen Montano from the Northeast Group, Group 5, will now serve as a regular voting member, and Suds Jane will be the alternate. Rosemary Kamei has been appointed as a regular voting member, and David Cohen was appointed as the alternate for Group 1, the City of San Jose, and Sergio Jimenez is stepping down from the board. So, let me see. I don't think we have anybody who needs to take the oath. That's right? Okay. So with that, Elaine, make sure everybody is where they're supposed to be.
Yes. All right. Abikoga, Blankley,
Here.
Burt. Cohen, Davis.
Here.
Dean, Foley,
Here.
Jane,
Here.
Kamei,
Here.
Lee, Lee Eng. Thank Lee Eng present. Mahan, Montano. Rennie, Torres,
Here.
Turner, Vice Chair Lopez,
Here.
Chairperson Chavez.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to go on to the orders of the day, and that, let me just highlight a couple of items for my colleagues. That on the regular agenda, item 7.3, this is a legislative position on SB 397. The bill was withdrawn by the author earlier this week. We will also hear agenda item 5.3, the chairperson's report, as the first item under item 5, and that will be followed by item 5.2 and then 5.1. Are there any changes from staff? I don't think there are. Are we good? Okay, I'm gonna take silence as a good thing. Let me move on, colleagues, to adjourning our meeting in honor of two people. One is Mercury News columnist Gary Richards and VTA operator William Alameda. Many of you probably knew Gary Richards personally. He was a longtime Mercury News transportation columnist, and Gary Richards passed away on December 17th. We want to acknowledge the tremendous work he's done over the years as an important resource, really, for the public. He did such a good job explaining the importance of transportation and transit and helping to explain really complicated issues that were coming before the public. The other thing is he loved answering people's questions about transportation. He was actually sort of a transportation, I was going to say geek, but I mean that in the best possible way. He was loving, he was funny, he was brave, he was thoughtful, and he was kind. And I just want to say how much I know we're all going to miss him. And I'll be asking our staff to send a letter to his family on behalf of the board, thanking him for being such a tremendous advocate for transportation and safe transit. We're now also going to adjourn tonight in memory of VTA bus operator William Alameda, who passed away December 29th, shortly after finishing his shift driving out of the Shibuya division. Mr. Alameda only joined VTA 2 years ago, and he is remembered as a pleasant coworker who loved spending time with his beloved grandchildren. William's family told us that he enjoyed his job at VTA and always looked forward to coming to work. I want to say to him and his family, to Mr. Alameda's family, how grateful we are for his service to VTA and how sorry we are for their loss. And we want to offer condolences to Gary Richards and his friends and family as well. And tonight, colleagues, I will ask again that we honor Gary Richards and William Alameda by honoring them, by ending our meeting in memoriam for them. If I could just ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the orders of the day?
Second.
So we have a motion from Deb and a second from Pam. Okay, just to confirm that. Any other comments or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'm going to ask all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes unanimously. This takes us to item 2, awards and commendations, and this is a resolution of appreciation for the 2023 board chairperson, Pat Burt. Before I ask for a motion, I'd like to take public comment on this item. Do we have any public speakers on this item?
There are no requests to speak, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public speaking component of this, and I'm going to ask for a motion and a second and I know this is awkward because Pat's here, so it's going to have to be unanimous, but can I get a motion to approve the resolution commending him?
So moved.
So moved,
Second.
Suds. And we have a second from Sergio. So let me ask if we could vote, and then we'll embarrass him. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Whew, all right. I'm going to read a few highlights of the resolution. And Pat, where is the resolution? Oh, it's ready for the picture. Sorry, I didn't mean to ruin the surprise. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, good. All right. So let me read a few of these. Whereas Pat Burt is completing his term as a chairperson of the VTA Board of Directors for 2023, and whereas Pat demonstrated his intelligent and capable leadership during his term as chairperson, addressing various financial and operation challenges, and whereas Pat Burt led discussions that led to the approval of the balanced budget for fiscal year 24 and 25, and whereas Pat's leadership was instrumental in helping VTA secure $375 million for the VTA BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 project, and whereas Pat Burt established VTA's BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 Ad Hoc Steering Committee to provide meaningful oversight and control costs and successfully deliver the project, and whereas Pat, in his role as chairperson, worked tirelessly with VTA staff and stakeholders to get consensus to place emergency interim housing at the Cerrone Yard, and whereas Pat's leadership was instrumental in raising system-wide ridership by 23%, now, therefore, be it resolved that VTA Board of Directors hereby commends and expresses its sincerest appreciation for your incredible leadership. And be it further resolved that this resolution is presented with thanks and good wishes, and frankly, an agreement that you'll stay on the board this year. So good, adopted by all of us today. A few minutes ago, actually, Pat. And Pat, do you want to say a few words?
Only that it's always nice to receive credit for the work of others. And I do want to say that I've really enjoyed and appreciated working with this board and with all of the VTA staff who has been so supportive throughout the year and so committed to this organization. So let's keep up the good work.
Thank you. Any other comments from my colleagues, Suds?
I just want to say that Pat is my strongest ally on the board for electrifying all of our transportation. Consistently asking for more electric buses and paratransit. So I really appreciate him.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Sergio.
Yeah, I'll say it's been a pleasure to be able to learn from you in your time as chair and now have the benefit of your continued leadership and presence on the board. I was describing my experience to a community member who was asking what it's like to be on the board, and I shared that I looked forward as chair. You're not always the one speaking, but that every time Pat Burt opened his mouth, I learned something. Whether it's about Palo Alto's bike plans that that you put in place, or the green energy transition. So really appreciate that and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, I'll just add one thanks, and that is to say, I know, and I know Carolyn knows, and Evelyn, just the tremendous amount of time you spent supporting BART, and your energy just never waned, and I really, really appreciated that. And also that you were willing to get into really, really challenging problems and not shy away from that. It's really the kind of leadership I respect most, so thank you. All right, so we're going to go downstairs and take a picture by the resolution that I showed you on accident. All right, everybody, come on down. Elaine will tell us where to stand. So I know that San Jose City Council member Sergio Jimenez was unable to join us tonight, but what I'd like to do is entertain a motion for his resolution, thanking him for all of his leadership and help. May I get a motion?
So moved.
So we have a motion from Pam and a second from Rosemary. And I'm going to open it to see if there's anybody who would like to make a public comment on that item.
There are no hands raised, Madam Chair.
So we'll close the public comment period. And I know he's not able to join us tonight, but I'm just going to say how much I've appreciated him and just a couple of his whereases. Whereas Sergio Jimenez is stepping down from the board after representing the city of San Jose since 2018 and serving on the SR 85 Policy Advisory Board and Policy Advisory Committee as vice chair of the Congestion Management and Program Planning Committee. Whereas Sergio deftly advocated for the development of a comprehensive transportation improvement program and promoted collaboration to alleviate traffic congestion and land use. And whereas he was instrumental in establishing a permanent vaccine site at the Santa Teresa Light Rail Station during the height of the pandemic, helping ensure residents got vaccinated. Therefore, be it resolved that VTA Board of Directors hereby commends and expresses its sincerest appreciation to Sergio Jimenez for his exemplary leadership, and that the resolution is passed today. Did I take a vote on that? Okay, so all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, let's send a big thank you and congratulations to Sergio as well. I'm now moving to public comment, and this is an opportunity to speak to an item. This is 3 that is not on the agenda, but within the purview of this committee. So I'm going to invite up each speaker for public comment, and I'm going to ask, Elaine, we do 1 minute for public comment? Yes. All right, so I'm going to invite up Max Siegel and Donid Stokas and Laura Uden. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Max Siegel. I'm a resident of San Jose. I'm with SEC for Transit. We're a transit advocacy group. One of the things I hope that we will be doing in the coming year, working with the board, is not just advocating to you, but also to our neighbors about the good value that we get from VTA, particularly in transit service. To wit, I've noticed, or I wanted to just communicate a real improvement in the service in the last year. I ride the 26 and the 64 A and B and the light rail. All of those services have been running more frequently for me. The connection times have also been quite impressive. Most often I'm waiting under 8 minutes, sometimes 4 and 5 minutes for a connection. And I think that shows that the strategy of improving just the level of service and the frequency of service has really been fruitful. So as we're looking to the future and where we focus, I hope we can do that. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Daniel Strokas, also with SEC for Transit. I apologize for my terrible handwriting.
Sorry, Daniel.
I just wanted to take a moment to say that I ride VTA almost every day of the week, and I wanted to take a moment to thank the staff and the operators for their hard work, their incredible hard work. And I believe that work is reflected not only in the increasing ridership numbers, which I think the manager will get to. Hope I didn't steal your spotlight there, but also just the number of people who are engaging with their community and VIDs. It's very exciting whenever I log on to Ask VTA and see how many people there are asking questions. Speaking of which, I am excited for the next one on the 25th about light rail. So yes, I just wanted to take a moment and thank again all the staff and the operators for their great work getting me around the county pretty much every day of the week. So thank you.
And as Laura comes up, I'll invite James Whiteman to follow Laura. Welcome.
Thank you, board members and Chair Chavez. I've asked you for help for 8 months now. My firm was illegally removed from the BART Silicon Valley project over 3 years ago, violating DBE regulations, and it nearly killed my firm. VTA investigated and concluded 9 months ago that I was correct. Since then, VTA has stalled the investigation and stopped communicating with me. 90 days ago, Chair Chavez requested VTA's procedures for addressing conflicts between primes and subs with a 30-day deadline. Where are they? VTA's SB program is supposed to help small businesses grow, not crush us. I am still waiting for justice and DB protection in this case. If this board requested VTA take action in my case, you're being ignored. Is this a governing board? I challenge this board to take any kind of action to protect my disabled veteran microbusiness and others from further damage by VTA. There are only two choices here. You can require VTA to complete the investigation into my complaint and take corrective action, or remain silent. Remaining silent is the same as continuing the injustice. What is your choice? It's time for the board to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call up Callie Wang after James. Come on up, James. Welcome.
Hi, my name is James White, and I was on light rail on December 24th. I saw bums at your light rail stations over on Cropley. Your light rail station at Milpitas was a mess, and the Great Mall was a mess, and the one over at Alder Station was burnt on fire. There was somebody burnt the station on fire. There was smoke, and your TV damages, things were all cracked. You guys got to get extension on CCTVs on your light rail stations. It's really unsafe. What else? What's going to be your April changes to the bus and light rail? I think light rail should go back to 20 minutes on weekends because, convention center is going to get busy and everything else is going to get busy, and your ridership is going to go up.
Welcome. Callie?
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Callie Wong. I am from Cupertino, and I'm an urban planning grad student at NYU. I just want to say thank you guys for your hard work at VTA to keep transit going. This is going to be a big year for transit locally and across the region, and just want to say be sure to rise up to the challenge. There's a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of opportunities to improve service and to improve connections with the rest of the region. So keep it up. Keep focusing on transit. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming to join us today. We're going to close the public comment item and move on to item 5. We don't have any public hearings, colleagues, so we'll be moving to item 5. We're going to begin with the chairperson's report, and I just have some brief kind of high-level comments that I want to address you all with tonight. So as we begin 2024, I know that this is a year of transition. There are many, many challenges coming our way. And one of them, as an example, is that while we were able to get the $375 million committed to the BART program through MTC, the governor is holding that money because of the tight budgets. And what that means is that we're going to see a lot of challenges over our next year. So the way I've been thinking about our challenges is in 3 buckets: gratitude, opportunity, and accountability. So let me just start with the gratitude. We have incredible, incredible people who work at VTA. We really do. From our line staff, our bus drivers, our mechanics, our janitors, the people who we contract with to provide security, our fare folks, the sheriffs, the team around this table. We have the staff, the talent, I think, in the staff that we need to do really important and big things. We also have a really thoughtful board. I appreciate each and every one of you, the board members, the alternates. Over the time that I've served on the board, some of the most interesting debates and discussions we've actually had have been here in terms of what we should be doing next and what we're thinking about. And I know the public is going to be relying on all of you very, very much over this next year as we transition what I think is going to be over some challenges, some that are expected and some maybe not so expected. So let me just say, I put that in the bucket of opportunities. We have opportunities to continue to build this region as a world-class region. I know that all of us absolutely understand that we will not be competitive at a state or international level or even a regional level if we can't move people and goods effectively and efficiently. And what that means is that we're going to have to dig in very deep right now as we think about the Eastridge alignment for light rail, the BART alignment, the Dearborn Arena Station. These are all things that people are going to count on us to move as effectively forward as we can, because years from now, we don't want people asking why they can't get around Silicon Valley and why we didn't. And people still say this to me. I don't know if you ever hear this. Why didn't Santa Clara County vote to have BART 30 years ago? You guys voted no. We never voted no. I'm going to just put that on the record right now. We never had an opportunity. People looked at us as a cherry field. They never imagined that we would have more people than San Francisco, which we do. So people weren't thinking long-term. We need to think long-term. We have other transitions. We have new members on the board now. Next year, we're going to have a significant turnover of board members who've been on the board for an extended period of time. And so what that means is that we have a lot of structures that we need to make sure are locked in so that you all, as you lead the board into the future, have all the tools you need to make sure that we're building out and operating a world-class system. So what does that mean in terms of priorities? We have good people, which I'm grateful for. We have tremendous opportunity ahead of us. But really, what I think we need to make sure we're focused on is that every single person who wants to move from point A to point B in our valley can do that, and that they see us as not just advocates, but champions for making that happen. What it also means is that we're going to have to dig deep on a number of areas. One of them that we're going to have to focus on relative to accountability is we've got to make sure that we're managing the resources of this agency in the most rigorous, transparent, robust way possible. I think we have to be a board that doesn't surprise the public. We have to be laser focused on communication, laser focused on transparency, laser focused on explaining to people how we're spending their money and where we're spending their money, and that we're focused as much as we can be on making sure that we're managing at a time that's really pretty unmanageable. I just want to give you one example. We all know that that BART came in more expensive than we expected. The bids on Eastridge Light Rail are coming in more expensive. There isn't a capital project in the nation that isn't coming in above the engineer's estimates. There isn't one. So the question before us is, how do we take the risks that are ahead of us, collaborate with the federal and state government, so that we're not surprising our public, and yet we're making the kinds of bold decisions that are going to matter not just now, but 10, 15, 20, 30 years into the future. And because of that, we're going to have to be rigorous, transparent, and respond to the needs of the community and, frankly, to the press and to the public. Like, we just don't have an option but to keep focusing there. So I want to just wrap up with one point. When I think about the future of this valley, there are many, many things that we know that we need to focus on. All of you as leaders in your cities are focused on everything from housing to homelessness to cleaning streets and all those really important bodies of work. There are a handful of things that we do that deeply, deeply create opportunity for others. One is education, right? The more people know, the more they learn, the more they have the ability to learn at a young level, the more likely they are to thrive. Education is a connector. Health is a connector. It's why I love being at the county, right? Health connects people to the best they can be. But the other is transportation. mean, I want you all to think about this, because many of you have these stories of when you were growing up and how you got from one place to another. You wouldn't have gotten the education you needed without transportation. Maybe you wouldn't have been able to see family. Maybe you wouldn't have been able to cross town to a school that you wouldn't have been able to go to. Maybe it was for tutoring. Maybe it was for dance lessons. Maybe it was for work. But our ability to help people get from point A to point B is how we help people fulfill their dreams. So, colleagues, what I'm going to be asking from you this year is a lot of your time, a lot of your energy. For those of you who've worked with me, you know that I can come up with a new idea a day. That's not what I'm doing now. What I'm saying is we're going to put the structures in place to make it possible for other people to dream. That's what our job is this year. So I'm excited about it. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you, and I hate to say you're going to be spending a lot of time with me and Sergio. And just, I would be remiss if I didn't say this. I'm very excited about having Sergio as the vice chair. I think it's wonderful to have this young, new, fresh leadership, and I'm really grateful that Pat has agreed to stay closely connected to Sergio and I this year. And it's actually a method that I really appreciate, which is keeping the former chair of the board connected to all of the work that we're doing. So we're going to be the three amigos this year. All right. Well, thank you all for letting me to speak to you about that. I'm going to move on now to our committee appointments. You all have them in the packet, and I just want to give you all a chance to digest those. And I want to say I would be honored if each of you would accept the list that of work. There are a lot of committees. I know the staff knows that as well because they staff all of them. But for all of you, there's going to be an expectation that a lot of deep work gets done in committees so the board can focus on the very high-level issues that we need to be able to focus on here. So what, if I could, what I'd like to do is ask for approval of the appointments to the board standing committees, joint powers boards, policy advisory boards, and ad hoc committees for 2024. And if I could get a motion in a second, then I'll go to public comment.
I'll move.
Thank you, Suds. Second. Thank you, Deb. Was that Deb? Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do I have any public speakers on this item?
We do not have any requests to speak, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'm going to close a public comment. I'm going to ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes unanimously. Thank you. I look forward to working with all of you. And now I get to turn it over to our general manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome on board. Again, actually, I'm very happy to have her as my chair. This is her third time as the VTA chair, so I know she's quite experienced and can probably help me get through this as well. So I appreciate you taking on the leadership this year. So good evening and Happy New Year's to all. I'm really looking forward to a great year and some exciting items to share with you this month. I did want to let you know that just real quickly, over the last few years, I've had this initiative called VTA Forward when I first came on, and I had three phases. One was stabilize, the second was revitalize, and the third was transform. There were 20 to 21 initiatives in each of the first two phases under stabilize. Those are almost complete. It's about 21 in revitalize that are well on their way or completed, and now we're moving in the transform phase for this year, and then we'll continue to move forward. But you will get a status report coming out very soon on that, so I just wanted to let you know. I want to just talk about a few things that are happening. One is I want to talk a little bit about our total ridership for last year. 2023 ridership numbers reached close to 25.5 million combined rides with bus and light rail, and VTA is among the top agencies in the country for rebounding ridership post-pandemic. October was our highest ridership month last year with close to 2.5 million rides. And we also hit some record-breaking ridership days during the Taylor Swift concerts in July with over 44,000 riders over the 2 days.
It's incredible. That's worth that.
So, yes. I do want to thank everybody. It's definitely a team getting it out. It's the operators, it's the mechanics, it's the management in the yards, and everybody really trying to get everything up and running and moving. And I appreciated the comments early on about the good connections. We are working very, very hard to try to keep our system cleaner. It's a lot of work, and trying to continue to keep everything and all of our service on time. Next, I would like to talk about, and just give you a heads up, and this is building onto what the BART Phase 2 project is that has that we had discussed when we came to the board last year in October at the board workshop. We did talk a little bit about some of the steps that FTA will take and that we have to do in securing the federal funding for the project. And that is a major effort is the risk assessment workshop, which happens next week for 3 days. There'll be many people in from FTA and primarily also their contractors that they bring in with them. They'll be doing a tour, and they will continue to actually work very closely through workshop sessions on a whole number of areas. BART will also participate in just where our risks are, really going through the numbers, and then coming up with the results. We expect those results to come in mid to late February, which we will share when they are available. And then once we receive this, we will review and update our cost schedule and financial plans, because they look at the risk not just for cost, but also for schedule, before submitting our formal requests for entry into New Starts Engineering. And from that point, we could then move, once we're into engineering, we can move the project into requesting for a full funding grant agreement. So just to let you know, this is a very important week next week for us in terms of the BART project. Next is the operator graduations. Our operations team continues to grow, helping make all those rides possible. And on December 27th, I was very lucky to be able to be there while 23 new bus operators graduated from their 9-week training course. And this class even went viral on social media with over 142,000 views on Instagram. And we could take a look at their video real quickly on the screen. They were a very fun group to be with. Our communications department tries to capture all these graduations, putting together videos for social media to celebrate our new operators and follow new trends. And I invite the board to check those out on our Instagram and Facebook pages, and be sure to follow our journey. And once again, I'll invite any of the board members who want to attend an upcoming graduation, just let us know. We could get the dates out to you when they are happening, both for light rail and bus, that please let our board office know, or government affairs, and we will provide that information to you and make sure that you know where to go. But we will try to get the dates out to you as well ahead, so you'll know. And, you know, who knows, you could go viral too with being at one of the sites. So I want to go next to something that, oops, there we go. This is actually a really fun event that VTA does every year, which is Stuff the Bus. Stuff the Bus, which is our holiday toy collection with the United States Marines Toys for Tots, was also a huge success. Once again, we filled over 1.5 buses of toys. We had clubs of motorcyclists, bicyclists, and Thunderbird owners drop off the new and unwrapped toys on December 9th at downtown San Jose's Christmas in the Park. As I mentioned, the generous donations really did help bring in quite a bit in support for Toys for Tots, and helping make the holiday season a little brighter for children in need. So I do want to thank our board chair, Cindy Chavez, for stopping by the event, and we actually offer our gratitude for everybody in the public who did donate to this event. Thank you. Next is Clipper Start, and I want to talk a little bit about this. January 1st, VTA joined more than the 20 Bay Area transit agencies in this pilot program. This is the second phase of the pilot program. We didn't participate in the first, but we are now there for the second, and this will now provide a 50% discount for adult single rides. So this is a high discount rate. Clipper Start makes public transit more affordable for more people. The eligibility includes those who have household income levels of 200% of the federal poverty level. You must be a resident of the Bay Area and between the ages of 19 and 64 and not have an RTC Clipper card for people with disabilities. And those eligible can apply at www.clipperstartcard.com. Please, if you have the ability to put something like that into your newsletters, that would be really useful to get that word out that these cards are available at a high discount rate throughout the Bay Area. The discounts are different across the agencies, I think, but are they all now 50%? They were different in the first pilot, but everybody went 50% this rate. So anyways, we're really happy to participate this time. And if you do want information, including your newsletters, we could provide you information as well. Just contact us or any social media. I want to talk next about the Taiwan and USC visits that came to VTA. Last month, VTA had the honor of hosting a delegation from Cupertino's sister city, Hsinchu City in northwestern Taiwan. And the visit was an invaluable opportunity to exchange insights and explore collaborative efforts in enhancing public transportation systems. And the key representatives from Hsinchu City government included their mayor, Ann Cao, and the group met with various VTA chiefs and key leaders in our agency. And then we also hosted a discussion and overview with USC students interested in transportation, and our thanks goes to the USC alumni and current VTA planner, Ian Lin, for arranging that, and I want to thank all the VTA staff for being such great hosts and making these visits possible. And next, I just want to give an update on our community outreach. We're starting the year strong, engaging with all our riders and the community members for input. Yesterday, on January 10th, VTA held a public meeting and open house on Baccarat Elementary School for public comment on the US 101 Zanker Road Skyport Drive 4th Street Improvement Project in San Jose. And once again this year, Ask VTA is back. This facilitated virtual question and answer sessions between VTA subject matter experts and the public and provides a space for conversation about transit, transportation, and other VTA programs. This year's first meeting will be held on January 25th, discussing the light rail system. And you can find out more information on all the outreach initiatives through our webpage on the Community Outreach webpage. And once again, you're encouraged to attend any of the events the VTA holds. The last item I have is on the free self-driving shuttle pilot program that we are doing at the Palo Alto Veterans Administration Medical Center. So starting on January 22nd, that shuttle will begin a pilot service until July 2024. It is an automated vehicle. There will be a human safety attendant always on board to assist passengers as needed, and the service will be branded as Viva Shuttle, which stands for VTA Innovation and Veterans Administration. And the service will travel on a route with 3 stops on the medical center campus. And we're testing this shuttle to see if there's a role for the technology of self-driving vehicles in aiding some of VTA's human-driven operations and also potential use for supporting businesses that actually then would connect to our system. And that concludes my report in terms of slides and everything, but I do want to turn it over to Jim Lawson to talk a little bit about the budget, correct? The governor's budget.
Of course. There is a very detailed report in your packet on the government affairs, but I did want to take this opportunity, as Carolyn has said, to give you a really brief update on some of the breaking news. So as of today, in the last few hours, the Senate and the House have agreed to the top line numbers on the appropriations bills for 2024. We're hopeful that this is a good sign for the continuation of the Capital Investment Grant Program at its current level. As you know, this is where our BART Phase 2 funding would come from. The current continuing resolutions due to expire on January 19th. There's not a lot of time for the House and Senate to come together on this. Our Washington advocates are optimistic that there will be a deal and a government shutdown avoided. However, they do caution that some House members are talking about ways to stop this process and get the deep spending cuts that they desire. If that happens, and they are able to hold this up in the House, that will trigger a government shutdown. As a result, VTA and your staff is working to make sure that any and all of our grants and applications that we have pending are submitted as soon as possible in case of a government shutdown. On the state level, again, we've heard a lot about the governor's budget. Governor Newsom announced his budget yesterday, as he's required to do under the state constitution, and the proposed state budget is a total of $291 billion. The extremely good news is that the projected deficit is not the $68 billion originally feared. The $38 billion shortfall the governor projects will be covered by programming cuts, delays, and clawbacks. The cuts and clawbacks are particularly in the areas of housing and climate funding. The $5.1 billion in transit relief over 4 years has been preserved, for which we are very grateful. The $770 million for the Bay Area in formula TIRCIT funds will not be reduced, but it will be spread over 2 years. Our BART Phase 2 funding is included in this as $375 million, along with BART core capacity and as well as some operating funds. And again, as I said, this is to match the federal grant that we will be applying for later this year. This change should not impact our cash flow or our application so long as the extension of this does not go beyond the 2 years. Finally, as mentioned under orders of the day, Senator Wahhab's bill, SB 397, which was earlier on your agenda with an opposed position, would have consolidated the 27 transit operators in the MTC in the region under MTC control. Given the complexity of the issue and the significant impact on areas of transit funding, union contracts, planning, and local control, she pulled the bill right before Tuesday's hearing. She did say she would work with the California Transit Association and operators to further study the opportunity to combine transit operators in the Bay Area. The rest of that information is in your packet, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so one thing, I do want to thank Jim a lot. Jim really contacted the California Transit Association and really helped support and have them understand the Wahhab bill and what the impacts would be. And so CTA was quite engaged in those efforts, and will continue to be engaged with Senator Wahhab and where she wants to go. But I think that was really important. So I appreciate Jim's working with the California Transit Association. The only thing I have to add is the ridership and security statistics are in your online packet. So that concludes my report.
Great, thank you very much. And a lot of amazing work going on and some interesting, happenings at the federal and state level. So thank you both. First, I want to see if there's any public comment on this item.
There are no requests for this item, Madam Chair, both in person and in Zoom.
Thank you. So I'm going to close the public comment period. I'm not seeing any lights from my colleagues, so yes.
I just want to take a moment to recognize VTA operator Marisol Rodriguez, who responded to an alert from Campbell PD. This was just actually earlier today, and helped us locate an elderly individual who had wandered off and was at risk. So definitely a lot of gratitude from the family and community in Campbell and our Campbell PD, but just wanted to make sure that was passed on to her.
That's great. Thank you.
If I may, Madam Chair, we will also note that that is on our social media site, on Instagram and Facebook. So please feel free to sign up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that takes us to item 5.1, and these are the committee reports. We do not have reports for 5.1A, 5.1B, 5.1D, and 5.1E. The written reports for 5.1C are in your packet. Are there any comments for this item? I see none. So I'm now going to move on to the consent calendar. And this is this takes us through items 6.1 through 610. And if there are any comments on anything, first let me see if my colleagues want to pull anything from the consent calendar sets.
Chair, I'd like to pull item 6.3, the door control units.
Okay, we're going to pull 6.3. Anything else? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion in a second, and then we'll go to the public speakers.
I move the balance of the consent.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we have a motion and a second. I'll now go to public speakers. And so on consent, I'd like to invite up Max and Siddharth Kodapati. Thank you. Welcome. Wait 1 minute. I just want to make sure your mic's on. Want to try it again, Max?
Great. Hi, my name is Max Siegel, SEC for Transit. I wanted to discuss the transit signal priority with a little anecdote. I visited my friend up in the Sunset in San Francisco the other day. I ended up taking 4 operators to get there because there's no high-speed rail from the Willow Glen to the Sunset, not that there should necessarily be. But in that, 4 operators, 6 connections, the best connections and the quickest being VTA. This still took over 2.5 hours to get there, and the reason was the speed of the buses. This is really a critical component to making transit not just competitive but world-class in the region. So anything that the board can do to encourage better connection or better signal priority, not just in San Jose where we have it now, but across the county, would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Sid Kodapati. I live in near Cahill Park, and I commute every day to work using VTA. I just wanted to say I'm really excited about the transit signal priority being considered and really in support of its expansion. Sort of like the previous speaker, I've also ridden the bus in other cities where they have transit priority, and it's really major improvement in bus speeds. This is a little weird, but I actually timed my commute the other day, and almost 1/3 of the time was spent sitting at red lights. And obviously, we can't never sit at a red light, but it would be really beneficial to cut that time down if we could. So, yeah, thank you for considering transit signal priority, and I hope we can expand it as much as possible.
Thank you. I'm going to, do I have anybody online?
Madam Chair, we have received written public comments, and it's been posted online, and it is also included in our supplemental information packet.
Great. Thank you so much. So we're going to close the public.
Madam Chair, if I may, there's one hand raised in Zoom.
Okay.
Emil, go ahead, please, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'd love to see transit be have priority in streets. I think I have a saying that public transit doesn't really have to be good. It just has to be better than cars. It just has to be the better option. And I think that's one great way to encourage that. So I really do think that by reducing the amount of time that buses have to wait at signals compared to cars is the way to go. So I really approve of this type of action. Thank you very much. That's it.
Our next speaker is Cedric. Go ahead, please, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Good evening. Thank you for holding this topic. I too support prioritized timing for buses and transit. I've been a rider. I've prioritized biking and transiting for my commute and travel purposes for multiple decades now. And that reduction of the timing saves a lot of time for the people. And I've been on the other side on my bike trying to catch up to that bus. And every time I'd be waiting at the light and I'd almost catch up, and then the light would turn and off it would go. And I'd go chasing that bus almost all the way home. So don't make me chase that bus. Make that bus get away from me. I'll wait for the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, and that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. We're going to close the public comment period there, and I'm going to ask for, I don't see any lights. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Thank you. We got the message on the lights. Thank you. All right, we're going to now move on, and I can't remember, do we take that, what's on consent next? Okay, item 6.3 then. Suds, do you have comments or questions?
Okay. So this concerns the door control units. Now, our light rail vehicles are 20 years old, so this is a proposal to replace the door control unit, which is the thing that senses that somebody's in the way of the doors closing. And certainly, it's a safety issue. But the thing that, well, I'll read from the executive summary. IFE will engineer a modernized unit compatible with VTA's LRVs and install the newly designed units on 2 LRVs for pilot testing. So my question is, are we the only transit agency with these light rail vehicles? Why is it that other transit agencies don't have the same problems? And why aren't we sharing the cost of engineering these door control units with other transit agencies to save us money? And will there be a second source for these door control units?
I don't have the perfect answer for, sorry. I'm sorry. My name's Michael Bates. I'm the operations manager for light rail vehicle maintenance and light rail engineering. I came in the middle of this project, so I don't know how much they went back and researched with other agencies. But a lot of these vehicles are built and designed for each agency as they go forward. These doors are kind of historically worked very well for us. I think they work well for other agencies. New Jersey has the same trains as us. I don't know what door control unit that they're using off the top of my head. I'd have to do some research on that. But to get these to interface in with our control system, the DCU actually controls the whole door opening and closing, as well as the safety aspects of whether they're closed completely. Our FMS system, which they interface with, which is the control system for the train, is also old and uses obsolete technology. So it's important to try to interface that together. And in the process of sending this out to, looking for solutions for this, we ran into a lot of issues with units, trying to control, to interface with our FMS system. So most manufacturers or contractors want to control that process, make sure everything works smoothly, is to install it, have their people install it and make that whole process all the way through from beginning to end. With IFE, they're the original manufacturers. They understand what the controls and the communication between those modules and the DCU needs to be. So they're in a good position to understand what they need to do and can train our people to install these new units to put those in.
Thank you. I'm still not quite understanding why we don't have a group of other agencies that we talk to regularly about our issues and try to collaborate to try to save money on. We're paying the whole cost of engineering, and then whatever this company, IFE, is then maybe going to go sell those to other transit agencies. And we're bearing the whole cost of the engineering and the pilot testing.
I have to, if I may, Member Jane, Mike has just recently come into this position. His predecessor here had been involved for many, many years and was well known in the industry and did cooperate with other transit operators in these areas of rail engineering. I have a great deal of confidence that he checked. One of the challenges that we face on an ongoing basis is these vehicles are very much a custom job, and even though you may have the same vehicle, that doesn't mean you have the same controller, parts, connections, software, all the rest of it. I can assure you that if there was somebody else who had the exact same configuration, we would certainly be following up on your very wise advice.
Well, that begs the question, why do we have to have so customized devices? We pay extra if they aren't, made on an assembly line.
They are not made on an assembly line, and they are indeed custom built. It's an industry-wide challenge that we face, and I think your leadership in this has convinced us that as we look forward to new vehicles, like zero-emission vehicles and the rest, that we try to make sure that they are, A, reputable manufacturers, and B, that there's a great deal of similarity between different operators on them. And right now, maintaining these vehicles that have been in service for over 20 years is an ongoing challenge, and it's one that we're making our best efforts, given the equipment we have, in order to do the best job to keep the public safe and to safeguard the taxpayers' money as well.
Derek, did you have something to add on that one?
Derek, you have to turn your mic on. I'm sorry. We try to make it tricky for you.
Derek Calhoun,
There you
Chief
go.
Operating Officer. One of the things that we also deal with is obsolescence. And so we're trying to make sure with all the, as we move forward with all of our RFPs, that we're looking in detail to make sure that we don't have anything that could be, obsolete in a short amount of time, and making sure that we're looking at other transit agencies that have similar new vehicles as we go to the new vehicles to make sure that we document that in our RFPs and to make sure that it's a part of our future.
Okay, I'm happy to make a motion to approve, but I just think that going forward, we need to make sure that we're looking at second sourcing, and we're looking at the other agencies that are buying the similar products.
Thank
'Cause
you,
they-
Suds. We have, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you. We have a second. There was a little tag team there, but Elaine, who'd you get? Okay. Any other comments on this item? Let me just make one point, and I think this is something we could ask the staff to think about, is that when we are making purchases of almost any kind, and it's not just us, when you all are buying software for your cities, anything we customize becomes drama long-term. And one thing we should be thinking about is what are the policies that we need to have in place that allow us to be buying, to be blunt, a little more off the shelf and a little less custom. And as we think about new and emerging technologies, that will be our next challenge. So I will just put that on Carolyn and the staff to give some thought to how we are more protective of that in the future. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Suds, thank you for raising that. We're going to move on to item 7.1, and this is transit-oriented development, community policy update, and declaration of exempt surplus lands. This has two recommended actions. First is to adopt the transit-oriented communities policy update as set forth in attachment A of the staff report, and the second is to adopt resolution declaring exemption for 22 TOD portfolio properties pursuant to the Surplus Lands Act. Jesse, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and Directors. My name is Jessie O'Malley Solis, and I'm VTA's Director of Real Estate and Transit-Oriented Development. Tonight, Christina Nape, a Senior Transit-Oriented Development Project Manager, is here with me to help present. We brought this item to the Administration and Finance Committee meeting in December, and we received robust comment and discussion, which resulted in several referrals that were found in the ANF committee report before you today. Staff is separately working with the ANF committee members on the referrals received and we'll be working on that over the coming months to get back to you all. The item before you tonight is a two-part action item. First, we are asking the board to consider an update to the transit-oriented communities policy, and secondarily, a declaration of 22 VTA sites as surplus land exempt. I'd like to provide some brief background and context on this item. All government agencies must comply with the Surplus Land Act as a baseline. In 2020, AB 1486 was enacted and created some gray areas for transit agencies in compliance with the Surplus Land Act. Since then, VTA staff, along with our colleagues at Caltrain, BART, LA Metro, and we worked closely with the California Transit Association, or CTA, to build in clarifying language into the law to apply to transit agencies on Surplus Land Act compliance. Senator Caballero and Assemblymember Ting put out new legislation, SB 747 and AB 480, which provided a path for surplus land exemption for transit agencies in the state of California. The three-part approach before you today is one, first, an update of the transit-oriented communities policy to incorporate Surplus Land Act exemption provisions. Two, a declaration of 22 of our 29 transit-oriented development sites as surplus land exemption. And then upon board's approval of that exemption and action, providing the California Department of Housing and Community Development with notice of the exemption. And Christina will be presenting these next few slides.
Thank you, Jesse. The new legislation that Jesse outlined lays out specific requirements that transit agencies must meet in order to not only exempt multiple sites at once, but also to pursue any kind of non-residential development. So this includes commercial, industrial, or office development, or any development that is for the sole purpose of investment or revenue generation for the agency. These requirements are a policy that at least 50% of the portfolio land be utilized for residential development. There must be a minimum of 300 residential units or 20 units per gross acre across the portfolio at full build-out. A policy that at least 25% of all residential units must be affordable to low-income households for at least 55 years for rental housing or 45 years for ownership. It also requires that these terms be recorded against the land in a restrictive covenant. Any land disposed of for residential purposes must go through a competitive solicitation process, and HCD's identified housing sponsors must be invited to participate. And finally, before the agency enters into an agreement for non-residential development, we must have already entered into agreements on at least 25% of the land designated for affordable housing. Next slide, please. So now that we've reviewed those requirements, we would like to discuss the actions that we are taking to comply. With today's action, we are looking to update our TOC policy in the following ways: requiring at least 50% of TOD land to be used for residential purposes, setting minimum densities across the entire portfolio at build-out, requiring that affordable terms be included in a restrictive covenant that will be recorded against the land, and requiring that we follow the specific solicitation process as outlined in the legislation. Next slide, please. With these requirements in mind, we would like to look at how our TOD portfolio is producing housing. We project that at full build-out, roughly 60% of the land within the portfolio will be used for residential purposes, and in total, over 7,000 residential units will be constructed, of which 3,000, or over 40%, will be affordable. We also estimate that roughly 46 of the 160 acres within the portfolio will be utilized for affordable housing, and as of today, we've entered into agreements for affordable housing projects on 14 of those 46 acres. Our affordable housing policy, which we updated in 2022, requires that 25% of residential units in any project must be affordable at 60% area median income and below. And of those units, at least half need to be at the very low and extremely low income levels. Portfolio-wide, we have a goal that at full build-out, at least 40% of all units developed will be affordable. Our current policy and projections exceed SLA requirements in terms of providing not only a greater number of affordable units, but also providing those units at deeper levels of affordability than required by HCD. So now I'll hand it back to Jesse to summarize where we are and our recommendation.
Thank you, Christina. As Christina highlighted in that last slide, VTA is currently meeting or exceeding the Surplus Land Act exemption requirements and provisions. The policy update before you tonight ensures that our policy is compliant with the Surplus Land Act provisions. And finally, the declaration of 22 of our VTA transit-oriented development sites as surplus land exempt. The staff recommendation before you tonight is that the board adopt the updated transit-oriented communities policy as set forth in attachment A in your packet, and adopt the resolution in attachment B in your packet, identifying the proposed exempt sites and locations. With that, we'll pause, and Christina and I are here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Before I go to questions from my colleagues, I'm going to see if there are any public speakers on this item.
There are no requests to speak, Madam Chair.
So I'm going to close the public comments and move to my colleagues for comments or questions. Do I have any? Looking to my left? No. Looking to my right? No. May I get a motion for approval? Motion from Pat and a second from Mayor Mahan. So we have a motion and a second. I'll take a vote on that motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We're going to move on then to item, I think that the committee meeting got everybody tired out. So we're going to move on to item 7.2. And this is the Metropolitan Transportation Commission's proposed regional transit measure. And Jim, am I turning this over to you?
Thank you, Cindy. Yes, what I'd like to do is take you through a brief slide presentation on this issue. I'm sure everybody has heard that there's been a lot of talk in the county about bringing forward a regional transit measure in order to provide operating expense to support transit operations in the Bay Area. A lot of this was generated from the fiscal cliff discussion that happened earlier over the last couple of years, and was also related to the fact that the governor and the legislature made that deal to bring over $5 billion toward transit in California to help address the obvious need. One of the leaders of this effort has been Senator Scott Wiener of San Francisco, and we certainly salute his efforts to try to find ways to have a sustainable, safe, and effective transit system throughout the Bay Area. The Metropolitan Transportation Commission has been doing a great deal of work on this issue. They've been reaching out. So what I'd like to accomplish with this is to give you a brief background on what they've been doing, outline some of the concerns we have that we want to avoid, and finally to ask you to approve language in our legislative program, which you'll be seeing next month, in order to guide both myself and my staff, along with our contract advocates, in how we deal with this issue as we go forward. Tomorrow, Mayor Mahan will be attending the MTC Legislative Committee meeting, where this will be brought up, and it will be directed as a request to the full commission at the end of the month, where Member Chavez and ex-officio member Abi Kobigo also sit on the full commission, to request the legislature to provide legislative authority to allow MTC to place a measure on the ballot. Unlike VTA, MTC does not have that as part of their portfolio of powers. So I want to be a little bit careful, because a lot of different things have been spoken about, a lot of different ideas have been floated. And I would just want you to know that in terms of the legislation itself that will be that'll be considered by the legislature. We think that the more flexible and high level it is, the better off we are as we provide or as we create a ballot measure that could be used in all of the 9 Bay Area counties. This is kind of the timeline that the MTC is proposing. So this year, they want to request the legislation that will allow them to go to the ballot. Between 24 and 26, they want to run a campaign in order to be successful. Right now, they're looking at a November of 2026 time frame for that election. They would like it to be flexible, to have the ability to look at more than one opportunity. For example, if 2026 doesn't look appropriate according to the polls, they want the opportunity to look at 28 or 30 or whatever is the most appropriate. And after that, the initial structure that MTC used, which very, very recently changed, was to try to raise $1 billion annually from the 9-county Bay Area, and a lot of their projections were based on that. I will tell you that recently their approach has been to look at a potential of up to $2 billion in order to meet all of various needs. So some of the considerations we need to keep in mind is a major share of this revenue is probably going to be required by our partners at BART, San Francisco Municipal Transportation Authority, and Caltrain, because the driving factor here has been the operational shortfall of those operators. They've also determined from their polling that they need to, what I've characterized here, include pothole repair issues, which is street improvements, bike paths, things that will appeal to a broader section of the public. They're also talking about MTC enforcing what are now undefined accountability measures to show the public that they're being responsible stewards of the public purse. Right now, they need an entity to run a campaign. And they've even had conversations about, some organizations doing a citizens initiative in order to bypass the 2/3 majority for passage. Citizens initiative would require a 50% plus one vote. I will tell you that other organizations have tried that and has, to date, not been a successful method of putting something on the ballot. The polling does show support, never at the 2/3 majority, barely above the 50%. And that support has declined between the March polling and the October polling. The last item I wanted to bring up here was, how many counties would be included? Would it be all 9? Would it be 5? Would it be some subset? So some of the challenges that I see, and you all will recall that Santa Clara County was the first self-help county in California. We're the first ones to pass a sales tax to provide roadway and transportation improvements in our own county. So we have some experience with this. When you look at the polling results, they're talking about a 53% favorable rating on what we would call a push poll, something that's very positive. There are no negatives associated with the polling questions. This is down 4% since the polling was done originally in March. They asked for issues of importance to the voters. Crime and drugs was the most important, getting a 27% rating. Homelessness was next. Traffic was at 2%, and transit was below that at 1%. I will mention that this reinforces the need to have things other than transit operations on a ballot measure such as this. And lastly, it's obvious, attitudes are going to change before the election, hence the reason to look at more than one potential time to go to the voters. This funding source was based on the original estimate of $1 billion annually. A sales tax would generate that amount at a half cent over 30 years, an income tax at this rate of payroll tax. This is how they asked the question. And it's to improve safety and cleanliness on BART and other local public transit, reduce Bay Area traffic, expand and improve bus, BART, light rail, ferry, and train service, reliability and convenience, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, repair potholes, make transit easier and more affordable to use, and make streets safer for walking and biking. This is how they asked the question associated with each of those sources for raising that revenue. So we looked at this, and one of the challenges that we'll have, and that I think we all need to keep in mind, is Santa Clara County will generate between 25 to 28% of the revenue coming from any of those sources, depending on which one they pick. The fiscal cliff, as I mentioned earlier, continues for some of the operators. The polling suggests, again, the need to include the pothole items, which will eat into the amount that's going to be available for transit operations. And it's going to be challenging to achieve a return to source. And in our meeting with Senator Wiener on Monday, he acknowledged that this will indeed be a challenge as he solicits support from his fellow colleagues in the legislature. And this is what I meant when I said that at 25 to 28% of the money raised, we need to be assured that there will be a return to Santa Clara County consistent with the investment that our taxpayers are making. As I'm sure you'll all recall, we are heavily sales tax dependent. And here are the 4 sales tax measures that we currently collect that provide for operations as well as capital projects. Each of them has, with the exception of the 1976 measure, which is in perpetuity, each of them has a sunset clause. As you can see, they look like they're pretty far out, but that's really not that far out. And any opportunity we have to renew those, to reauthorize those taxes, will happen in several years before the expiration of those taxes. One of the things we have found recently that tends to resonate more with the voters is replacing an existing tax without raising taxes. So we are concerned that we do not impact our ability to reauthorize taxes that we know we're going to need to reauthorize to keep transit at our current level, not even considering increasing them. Here are some of the projects in the Measure A sales tax measure. Here are some of the projects in the Measure B sales tax measure. I'm not going to go through all of them. So I think we need to be very supportive of this regional measure because transit and transit operations needs that support. So if there's an agreement to receive an amount commensurate with our contribution to the sales tax, our support for BART should include our contribution for the extension, and we don't impact local measure reauthorization. Let me because B is a little bit complicated, just bear with me for a moment. The operation of the BART extension into Santa Clara County is paid for by VTA. It was originally intended to mostly be through the 2008 8-cent sales tax, but most of it was going to be paid by revenue generated by the ridership. Because of the extreme drop in BART's ridership, this has created a big gap in our ability to provide funding for BART. And in the last tranche of relief funds to BART, our portion of the extension was not included. Our concern is that any consideration to BART for subsidy, for support, for help in meeting their operational expenses include the portion that we pay for here in Santa Clara County. So our recommendation for your consideration this evening is to approve this language for our legislative program, to advocate for a share of the proposed regional transit measure commensurate with the contribution made by the taxpayers of Santa Clara County, to include VTA's payment for the operating capital expense of the BART Silicon Valley extension in any regional support for BART, and to protect VTA's flexibility in reauthorizing our current local sales tax measures that have expiration dates. Sorry, that was a long presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions.
I'm going to, before I go to questions, I'm going to ask if Carolyn would like to make some comments. I'm going to go to the public very quickly to see if there's any public feedback, and then I'll come back to the board.
So, thanks, Jim. One of the things I want to have a discussion about is that a lot of this is focused around our transit. And actually, I might ask our CFO, our Assistant General Manager, to come up and speak a little bit to each of those measures. We didn't get into detail that Jim did, but exactly the level of funding that we actually depend on from those sales tax measures and operations. And right now, we have that control. And that's one of the considerations that we do have, is that not having control of our own operations, and we have not passed sales tax measures easily for operations. It's always been paired with capital improvements and larger scale things. So this would be very different. I think it's, and they understand that. We've had conversations with Senator Wiener's staff, and I appreciate it. And we're not saying, this is about getting legislation to allow MTC to be able to continue to pursue this avenue. And so we're not necessarily against that, but at the same time, we cannot be silent to what this potentially could do to us and whether we're there. So that's why we're bringing this here for discussion. Just to let you know, where MTC is that they have a number of expenditure categories, which include transit transformation. I wish I had this on slides so you could have it. Safe streets. We'll send the chart to you. Connectivity and climate resilience. And at the time, they were going to be saying the minimum numbers that would be placed in each of those categories of the fund source. They are now moving away from actually putting minimums in and actually potentially adding a category for flexibility so that the minimums aren't set. That would be more through the stakeholder engagement, which we are fine with as well. They are talking, looking mostly what's really important to the state legislature and to any party right now is the accountability that can be put into place. One of them is having MTC act as the regional transit network manager with oversight over fare payment, fare integration, schedule coordination, mapping and wayfinding, real-time transit information, and other customer-facing operating policies, which we actually participate now in as a group with the operators, and there is a Regional Network Management Council that I sit on, and then there is a committee at MTC as well. And then also that it would establish an oversight committee, which we're okay. The travel demand management provisions would be, one of the things they're looking at is require, subject to the voter approval, the large employers of 50 or more employees in the Bay Area that are located near transit must provide the Clipper Bay Pass to their employees. That would be something that is still under discussion as to how that affects not just our Smart Pass program, but also the Go Pass program by Caltrain. The geographic area of the tax, they were originally saying the 9-county Bay Area or a minimum of 5 counties. They are leaving that open. They're just saying 9 counties with a subset or a subset of those 9 counties. So they're not saying the 5 counties. Because I think the 5 counties were definitely sort of including us in that mix. And so it could just be 3 counties, it could be 5, if that's the way the legislation ends up getting written. Last is that, there's, I think Jim mentioned a lot about the timing and the duration of the ballot measure. They'd like to go on November 26th, but they're going to ask for that November 26th or later. They want to have the option to actually take it to the ballot through signatures so that they could potentially go for a 50%. It's a 50% majority vote. And I think the remaining is that there has been a lot of discussion around the funding distribution. We are one of the players who are talking about the funding distribution about that. And the specific intent now is to actually not talk about that right now in the legislation and to come back at that through this through the stakeholder process. But, you know, that is something that we will have to keep. We truly believe we need a return to source. I think some of it right now is we have this flexibility with our funds. We're different than Sonoma County, which is different than San Francisco. So this is the reason why this is really important. This will be discussed tomorrow at the MTC Legislative Committee. So I just wanted to give you an update on sort of where MTC is based on when we when Jim put the presentation together this evening. So I welcome any discussion on this topic, but I just wanted to be very clear. You know, there is, I will say, I am concerned just because I've been here through all the sales tax measures that we currently have when they're voted in, and the ability to manage our funds in a way that the voters want them to come in and what we can spend them on is really critical to me. And so I think that's something we would have to continue to work with should there be a regional measure.
So I'm going to take public comment. Do we have any public speakers on this item? Oh, wait a minute. Yes, we have a few. I'm going to invite up Max, Callie, and Siddharth.
Thank you. Max Siegel, SEC for Transit. I wanted to state that I agree with the phrasing coming from staff regarding that the allocation of funding is commensurate with our contribution. We need more service in Santa Clara County, and that's obvious to everyone here. And anything that complicates that for us is something that should make us reconsider our commitment to a regional measure. It's not lost on us that when MTC was distributing funds late last year for emergency operations, we were completely left out, and SFMTA and BART received the lion's share. Just because we're not facing a fiscal cliff doesn't mean that we should have eroded service, and it's because of the making do from staff as well as the responsible budgeting from this board that we were able to provide what we have today. So a regional measure really needs to improve service here, and I encourage you to tread carefully as you're at MTC.
Hello again, good evening. Is this thing on?
Yes, you're on.
Okay. Well, good evening. I want to say I support the idea of having a regional transit ballot measure. The whole Santa Clara County and the Bay Area as a whole need more funding for transit operations and needs more coordination between the services that do run within our county. I don't think there's necessarily a contradiction in terms there. I think when it gets into the questions of how the funding is distributed, I think we shouldn't always necessarily make a distinction between just what's purely local and what's purely regional. Santa Clara County is a big place. I think something like half of county residents travel more than 21 miles or more round trip daily. That's service that could be best met with the regional transit rail that we have within our county. And indeed, people do ride BART, do ride Caltrain within the county. There probably will be many more riding BART once that's extended. That needs to be met with better regional connections and fair integration. Let's not leave that off the table. Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Chair, can you ask that the clocks be running on the screen? Because the speakers can't see that.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay. If we could run that, that would be great. Thank you for catching that. Welcome.
Hi, Sid Kodapati with SEC for Transit. Forgot to mention that earlier. I just want to say I agree with the language presented by VTA earlier. VTA should definitely be getting a share of funds that lines up with its contribution, and it should be as flexible as possible so that it can best meet the needs of the county. I do also want to add that this regional measure is really important, even considering the fact that VTA is mostly financially stable. I mentioned earlier that I ride VTA every day, but I also need the ability to be able to get up to San Francisco and Oakland or Dublin and visit the people I know up there. And I'm only able to do that thanks to Caltrain and BART. So I hope that VTA can support the measure so that the regional connections that are necessary for all transit riders can be preserved And with a fair share of the funds, we can even improve transit here locally as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers online?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. Also, we have also written comments that are already uploaded on the agenda portal and included on the supplemental information packet. We have 6 speakers on queue. The first 3 are Patrick, Cedric, and Scott. Patrick, you may begin speaking when you're ready.
Good evening, board members. Patrick Boileau, Deputy Political Director with the Operating Engineers Local 3. We're urging strong support of the regional transit measure by your board, understanding that, of course, there needs to be some protections for VTA and negotiations, but at the same time, the Bay Area, including Santa Clara County, is a regional entity, and we need a robust regional transit system so that people can get around. So very much urging you to support this measure. Thank you very much for your time.
Our next speaker is Cedric. Go ahead, please, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, I also support the regional measure, and this language is reasonable. Commensurate is reasonable. I wouldn't say for me that means we necessarily need to get 100% of the money we put in. I'm not sure how much we currently support the broader environment, but the broader environment is important to us as well. So if our sister transit agencies are in trouble, I think it's okay if some of our county funds are going also towards supporting the whole. I myself taking Caltrain down there when I come down to San Jose and the core of Santa Clara County. I would just know that if we're meeting here, you report the results
Our next speaker is Scott, then followed by Justine, Adina, and Eugene. Scott, you may begin speaking when you're ready.
Yes, my name is Scott Mace, longtime resident of Santa Clara County. I am in support of the general concept of a regional measure for transportation. My concern is twofold. One is that with the low polling numbers for transit, I fear we may see a lot of highway projects added into this for political feasibility. I think that would be counterproductive. I also think that you have to look beyond the 9 counties. As someone who now drives back into the county, it's true that much of the growth of traffic is coming from outside the 9 counties. So the question is, how do you think larger than the 9 counties? And I don't know, but I think it's an important question to wrestle with. Thank you.
Next speaker is Justine, followed by Adina. Justine, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Thank you so much. My name is Justine Burt. I'm the Executive Director of the Palo Alto Transportation Management Association. I'm calling in to support the 2026 regional ballot measure for transportation funding. Just want to let you know we just conducted our annual commute survey among 738 people who work in Palo Alto, and 56% of them take single occupancy vehicles to work. Many of them are open to a more sustainable commute. 33% of those polled are interested in transit. We found that 122 people live less than 1 mile from one transit option that would get them to work. So we're seeing a lot of support for more seamless, connected mass transit options, and I just wanted to share that and share my support. Thank you.
Thank you. Adina, you may begin speaking when you're ready.
Can you hear me? Yes. Adina Levin, and my affiliations include Friends of Caltrain, Seamless Bay Area, and the Voices for Public Transportation Coalition supporting abundant, rider-friendly, convenient, equitable public transportation. We were very heavily involved with the campaign to bring in funding from the state to break the fiscal cliff, and at the legislative level and also at the state level, there's really a expectation that regions are going to be doing self-help in order for us to, potentially continue to get support from the state. And with regard to the benefits to Santa Clara County, the VTA's visionary network is really great and excellent, and having support to deliver that service as soon as possible is good. VTA is heavily invested in BART and Caltrain, and those services need to run in order to continue to serve Santa Clara County residents conveniently and equitably. Thank you.
Our last two speakers are Eugene and Hao Jun. Eugene, you may begin speaking when you're ready.
Good evening, everybody, and Happy New Year. Eugene Bradley, Silicon Valley Transit users. I echo the comments made by all the prior speakers, including Max, Scott, and Adina. I'm speaking as somebody who now lives in Monterey County because obviously I've been priced out of Silicon Valley. I've been living down here since 2014. Historically, my group has opposed a lot of these sales taxes that have come up. However, I personally would be more than willing to have my group to get their support for this badly needed regional transit measure, given that several of these key transit agencies like Muni, BART, and even in a way Caltrain are due to run out of federal money and thus may have to end up cutting their services, and that would hurt everybody. Like I said, as somebody who lives in Monterey County, I'm still in need of some of the transit options that would have me commute back into Santa Clara County. I want to go back to having more of the great public transit that's come to the county. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Hao Jun. Go ahead, please, and begin speaking when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Haojun Lee, and I'm a volunteer for the SCPC San Jose local team and the SCPC Mountain View local team. So I would like to also voice my support personally for the MTC ballot measure. I actually just read the budget that's being proposed by Gavin Newsom's office. It was just released today, and there's going to be a huge delay of a lot of the intercity rail transit funds. So the language that we are proposing here really will help the Santa Clara County, because I can imagine there might be further delays for intercity rail transit. So yeah, that's it. I yield my time.
That's our last speaker.
Thank you very much. I'm going to now go to my colleagues to see for comments and questions. I'm going to look to my right. Marie, I'll start with you.
Okay, thanks. This just may show my ignorance here, but I'm trying to understand how the suggested language addresses or covers constitutes an agreement to receive an amount commensurate with our contribution to the tax. I mean, what I read is include language in VTA's legislative program, and maybe I don't understand how VTA's legislative program requires MTC to do something?
No, it does
Okay, so that's what I'm asking, is how does that language tie to VTA wanting, if that's what the board wants, an agreement to receive an amount commensurate with what we contribute?
Thank you, Marie. That's an excellent question. And the way in which VTA operates, and what you may remember you saw last year, was a legislative program that was broken up into a federal, state, and local level. And what this language does is, A, it informs the board of what we need to be concerned about, because all of you, I guarantee, will be approached one way or another about supporting this measure. It gives you an idea of what some of the concerns and parameters there are. But most importantly, well, I shouldn't say that. You guys are much more important than us. It gives our staff, our government affairs staff, and our paid advocates in Sacramento direction in how they should conduct themselves in negotiations about what goes into the ballot measure itself. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
It gives us marching orders, if you will, in terms of how to approach it. And it is written in a fairly general way because we do support a regional sales tax. We want to make sure that it doesn't disadvantage us. Next month, you'll see the whole legislative program, and if the board passes this item, it will include this language as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Sergio?
Jim, I'm wondering if you can clarify in the conversations that you've had with Senator Wiener and his team, or just how the legislative language so far seems to be evolving. Have they zeroed in on basically a sales tax as the vehicle that they're going to take?
No, they have not. They, in fact, my last conversation with his staff was they want to keep that open and not, not confine themselves to just one. And frankly, as he said to me, every one of these has people who are going to object to it for one reason or another, and he knows all the good reasons, equity, especially for why sales tax doesn't work, why there's a cap that you're going to run up against. Some of the cities are higher, on and on. He recognizes that. So there'll be a process when this legislation is passed that will enable MTC and your colleagues who are on MTC to discuss what exactly goes into the ballot measure itself, which is what Carolyn was talking about when she was giving some of the more recent details of what MTC has been talking about. But the short answer is it's been our position and our recommendation that the legislative language is as broad as possible, and that gives everybody in the 9 Bay Area counties the opportunity to come together with what might be the best solution. Nobody's prescribing what it is.
Can I clarify?
Actually,
Yeah,
go ahead,
the
Carol.
question earlier when Jim said something. I'm not saying, even though it might sound like that, we're not necessarily saying we support the regional measure because we don't know what the regional measure is yet. What we're supporting right now is the ability for them to continue to get that legislation, but we want the items that we have recognized and nothing to take away, preclude what we need in the legislation.
Right. If I may, and Carolyn's exactly right, and I'm sorry if I confused you. We support a concept of this, but as everybody knows, the details are important.
Yeah, no, I'm clear on the process. I want to make sure that it seems to me that it would be in our interest to try to steer away as the process moves forward, and this may not be in the actual legislative language, but through the outreach that will be conducted to try to steer away from a sales tax so that we're not competing against ourselves. And so I just want to make sure that kind of flexibility for us is captured. I see maybe the last sentence in the language here that's on the screen could perhaps do some of that. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm hearing, I'm seeing nods from others, and but I think the gist is getting at flexibility, maintaining flexibility for our own sales tax measures going forward.
Okay.
My other question is a little bit about and this goes to some of the comments that the speakers made. How are we interpreting or defining commensurate in this language here? Does that mean one-to-one, approximate? Have just internally for our direction and process, how are we interpreting that?
Well, our esteemed general manager will tell you she wants every penny. I don't think it's reasonable to say that we will get every penny, but I think that should be our starting point. But again, as you've heard from several of the speakers, we are a regional player. We do understand that our colleagues do need support, and finding a reasonable amount is good. And it may be along the lines of, for 2 years it's this, but then for the next 5 years it's that. There's a lot of flexibility in there. The point is we want to be able to preserve the ability to have a return to source for Santa Clara County.
Okay, thank you very much. Very
Thank you.
helpful.
Pat? And then I'll come to this side.
Thank you. So a couple things. One of the areas that had been linked with this measure was this item that got pulled earlier about forced consolidation of agencies or hostile takeovers in the sense of the BART Caltrain consolidation. And the three of us who are on the Caltrain board certainly share that agency's very strong concern over that issue. My concern is that if that proposal is not put to death by agreement prior to this enabling legislation or prior to the tax measure, then after we support the tax measure, it can get resurrected. And the leverage point that we have is at this time and before the measure goes to the ballot. So it brings up the question of whether our language in our legislative program should include a reference to opposing forced consolidation of agencies.
Pat, you bring up a great point, and as our colleagues on MTC will see when they read the staff report for tomorrow's meeting, that issue of consolidation was discussed, and because of the good efforts of yourself and others, they've decided to change that to coordination rather than consolidation. And that is a good thing. Your point, which is excellent, is where do we stand on this? Senator Wahab, I think her heart's in the right place. She wants to support transit and transportation. I think she may not have a full picture of the impact. And so I will tell you that our meeting of the California Transit Association that Carolyn referred to earlier, there was a unanimous vote by people from north to south of California to oppose this legislation right away. And that's part of the reason that this got pulled. So I hear you, I agree, and I think we're probably better off if we hear her out in terms of what is it you're really trying to accomplish, rather than saying, death before dishonor, if you will. So that's just my recommendation, but we're happy to take your direction.
Well, I would like to see some language in our legislative program that reflects our sentiments on that. And while maybe we have this discussion, staff can think about what would be appropriate language. But I will note too, as I was just looking at even one of the press articles on her proposal, it alluded to, I think it was the 2007 regional transit study, I forget the title of it, and implied that study supported consolidation. It actually looked through 3 different alternatives and rejected consolidation and embraced what we all are supporting, which is a federalism of sorts, where we're coordinating on fares and service.
Exactly.
And so I would like to see that clearly laid out in our legislative language, that that's our position. And it's good to hear that we seem to have support for that among other agencies.
Oh, we do.
Yep, good. And then I did want to note that I struggle with the semantics under considerations. It says on B, support for BART includes our contribution for the extension. And that sentence just isn't quite clear to me, the meaning of it.
I hear you,
in a
and you're
literal
not the
sense.
first one to bring that up with me.
Okay.
If I may, the thought is this. When the first emergency funding was given, BART received relief for their operating shortfall. That relief was not extended to our payments for BART for the extension in Santa Clara County. We would like to find a way to make sure that people realize that we are paying for BART too, and when the And when BART has a shortfall because their fare box revenue is down, that impacts all of us too, and we want to be considered as part of that. And I would be happy to work with you or anyone else to refine that language.
Okay,
But
good.
you're not the first one to mention that.
Okay, good. And then, under the legislative language, we use the term advocate for, and then includes the aspect on commensurate contribution. Is advocate for too weak? Should we be, in our own legislative language, I understand this is our own guidance to ourselves.
This is our program, correct.
But is advocate for not strong enough? Is what we really want to have as a policy on that insist upon?
I'm sorry?
Insist upon?
Require. To insist instead of
Oh.
to, like, demand, we want it, we're not going to take
That-
anything less.
That's,
Or something in between. Advocate for could very well mean we asked and we lost. And we, therefore, we might still.
I mean, we could use language that says ensure that whatever it is that we're working on ensures commensurate.
Yeah, okay.
thank you for that suggestion. We'll
All
certainly
right.
use that.
And then under they pulled three different types of taxes. One was a payroll tax. That was the only business tax that they pulled. There's certainly a number of forms of business taxes. And they computed it to $1 billion based on a certain payroll percentage. Do you know whether that computation they used, I'm sure they didn't provide it to the police, but did it include exemptions for smaller businesses? Were there thresholds, or is it just every employee in the region?
I'm not privy to what was behind it. It has been a moving target. As I mentioned, that was based on their estimate of $1 billion. Recently, they're talking about $2 billion.
Yep,
I
that
think
too.
we'll have more definition on that as we focus in. But if I may, the point with the legislation was to, and we had argued with their staff, to try to keep it as general and open as possible so that the public process as we move forward.
Understood. I
Fix
just
the micro.
for purposes of understanding their computation and their kind of starting point premise conceptually around a business tax, can we find out, they had to have premises because they did a computation.
Right.
They take all employees in the region times this amount. Can we just find out what was the basis? Because if it doesn't include exemptions, then that may be something we want to start talking about with them sooner rather than
It's
later.
an excellent point, yes.
And then I'll just note that the support for the measure, whether it's a sales tax or payroll tax or otherwise, is less when there's less congestion and more when there's more congestion. And we're right now in a period where we still have a lot of hybrid work and the tech economy is down. So I suspect this is at a low point in voter support for those reasons, but that also may go into the timing of which ballot it goes on. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Margaret and then to Suds.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff, for the presentation and for bringing this forward. I appreciate the discussion. As one of the MTC representatives, we've been starting to talk about this concept of a regional measure, and I've felt this assumption that we all support it, and that was my concern, was that we hadn't really done a deep dive into the details. And in my short, I think I'm in my 4th year now on MTC, time and time again, I've experienced situations where I've felt that our Santa Clara County has not been receiving its fair share commensurate with our population. And one example I would give is with the RM3 measure, there was a pot of money for express lanes, and although we have several express lane projects in the works, we were not included in the there was I guess an agreement made by several counties, but we were not a part of that. And I learned later on, I'm on the BATA, the Bay Area Toll Authority Committee, about the situation. And when I asked, I was basically told because we were getting BART money, the other counties decided to go ahead and just divvy up the express lane funds. So there's probably more details than folks want to hear, but it's just time and time again I've had those experiences, and so it's really brought into question for me it is important to be regional, but my feeling is we're 25% of the region, and so we should really be getting our fair share. So I appreciate this because this will help us, I think, as we continue the conversation, gives us the guidelines as to what we should be advocating for. I agree. I think I would say require a share of the proposed regional transit measure. I feel very strongly that if we don't get that guarantee, I don't think we should be supporting this. I also had some concerns about number C, local measure reauthorization. It seems like the conversation is moving towards the sales tax measure, and the concern there, actually, some counties are actually already at 10%, I believe, which is, there's a cap. And when I asked about that, the answer I got was, well, you can just lift the cap. And that becomes a feasibility issue too, right? So I would want C to be C to be stronger and or maybe clearly laid out what we are willing to support and what and not. And then I appreciate former Chair Burt's comments about consolidation and forced consolidation, and I was part of that discussion and opposed it right away. And so we fortunately, we went to, is it cooperation? Yes. And interestingly, if you look at the poll results, the top item the item that polled the highest was consolidation of bus systems. And there are some counties that are much smaller than us, that have 3 bus systems. When we bring that up, there's quite a bit of opposition. So I'm not sure if forced consolidation, I would be completely against, because I think there are opportunities at consolidation elsewhere. So I don't know how we can nuance the wording, but I would like to keep that open. But again, I see opportunity elsewhere, not with Caltrain and BART. So those are just my thoughts. It did come up that $1 billion a year would not be enough, and some commissioners brought up $2 billion, but that really starts to, I think, beg the question of feasibility or viability, and already the poll results are not very good, but that's something we have to be mindful of. So yes, I appreciate this, and thank you very much for the guidance.
Suds.
Yeah, so I guess I don't really understand how we contribute to Caltrain and BART. How are we assessed our portion of the operations? And if we have return to source, and that funds are part of the BART system or the Caltrain system, what if the rest of the system is struggling? Are we going to get our 6 trains an hour, right? How do we ensure, we're building this $12 billion BART system, but if the rest of the BART system is struggling, how do we ensure that we're going to have trains coming to our stations? That's what I'm struggling with return to source.
So I think on the return to source, some of the concerns are more on our own VTA operations. I guess I sort of left Greg hanging out there. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about what % of our sales tax we're using on the measures? Because it's substantial what we fund for operations out of our sales tax measures. So to lose that capability to make those decisions or to continue operations could severely hurt VTA's operations. So that was more the concern about the return to source.
Yeah, so, and just real quick, from what Jim had shown before, of the 4 sales tax measures that we currently have, the 3 that will have a sunset to them, the 2000 Measure A right now contributes a little less than 21% of its amount to transit operations. So if you recall, when we went over the BART BART project and some of the funding, In 2036 and beyond, those transit operation dollars are not anticipated, of course, to be there. So we have to assume that something will replace them. And so when we get to that time frame, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $75 million a year that we're going to need from a transit operations perspective, and that is right now being provided by Measure A. And actually, 2016 Measure B provides a smaller amount, but it's about a 6 to 8% number every year that goes to operations to help support operations overall. So both of those as they sunset, and again, Measure B, the 2016 Measure B is out in 2047, so it's a little bit farther out there. But there are operations numbers that are being impacted, and so we need to make sure something gets replaced if there is any sort of a sales tax measure. And I also want to say this. I think there's one thing we need to keep in mind. This board and VTA has done a very good job of being disciplined in how we have structured our overall budget and what we do every year. We're a balanced budget. But that also means we've made sacrifices from a service perspective. So even when we talk about getting the replacement of the monies of this 20% and the 6% related to Measure A and Measure B, that is simply to get us back to where we are today, which we already know is not enough. Our service per capita is still the lowest in the entire region. So until the conversation is occurring that ensures that we're getting the money necessary to get service to the level that we need to provide to our Santa Clara County constituents, then you can have another conversation about extra money on top of that. But we need to make sure we're getting what we need to fill the gap and the money that we need to make sure that we're providing the service that we should be providing to our customers. So I want to make sure this group understands that and frames it accordingly in any conversations that we have in the future.
Yeah, and one of the things when Senator Wiener held a hearing at MTC and I got to speak was pretty much saying we hit our fiscal cliff in the early 2000s, and we did cuts to our service, and we're running 1990 levels of service right now at VTA. And you could imagine the amount of growth that we've had since 1990 in this county, and yet we haven't grown our service and the amount of service levels that we need to do. And so when you look at when they're talking about connectivity and fare integration and everything, we can't even run the frequencies of our light rail to meet BART, let alone our buses to meet AC Transit or to do connections. And that's one of the biggest issues that we're having. And so it's one of the things we continue to say, which sounds a little bit foreign up there when they're dealing with the fiscal cliffs of these other larger agencies. But it is really important to us to be able to grow our revenue for operations, or to grow our operations, whether it be revenue for operations or not, but to grow our service levels is so important. We are one of the lowest in the country in terms of per capita for the size of agency we are, for how much service. We have less than, I hate to say this, Utah, and Utah is very broad and based, but they still put more service on the street per capita than we do, and San Diego, and AC Transit is what we'd like to aspire to, but if we could even get to Utah or San Diego levels, we'd be thrilled. And so those are the things that we really want to do as part of that visionary network.
Thank you. So, do you have anything else? So I'm going to just give a perspective as well, and I've been on MTC a little bit shorter than Margaret, and actually maybe, God, it feels like forever, but let me just make a few observations. One is that of the 9 Bay Area counties, we tax ourselves more than any other county for transportation, transit, and our investments in roadways. When we wanted BART, we paid for BART to come through Alameda County to get here. We advocated for the money, and when it came here, because people couldn't be bothered with its construction, honest to God, that's partly why we leaned in to build it ourselves. It wasn't, we knew that if we weren't driving the train, it was not going to come to Santa Clara County. So here's our dilemma with MTC. MTC has a fantastic vision, and the vision is that we give more power and more leadership to MTC, so there's a much higher level of coordination in the 9 Bay Area counties. But here's the problem with that. The problem with that is that in our entire partnership with MTC, we have had challenges, not even with the fair share issue. So let me just give another example. We are 25% of the population. We are 27 to 28% of a sales tax. when MTC now receives dollars from the federal government that are given by population, even though we're 25% of the population, money does not get dispersed, even with that in the background. So what happened, and just as a reminder, even though we're 25% of the population, it took a legislative action to get a seat added for the mayor of San Jose that Sam got. And even when they did that, they had to add other seats because nobody wanted to have more or less people. But we are 3 members of, how many people are on the board? How many? Of 18. And because we have term limits, and we're not San Francisco or Oakland, we have a lot less juice on that board. Even with it, let me just say, like, if we had not had Jim Bell in the in the Senate, as a head of the Transportation Committee, we would have been more ignored. The reason we got resources from RM3 was because they needed the voters in the district. And then, as we were taking a vote for the East Valley Light Rail Connector, we had people in San Francisco concerned that we weren't building with enough density in San Jose, never mind that we're building more densely, and I know San Jose is doing a phenomenal job. I mean, I could literally go down the list of the reasons we should be concerned about. Now, let me just explain one issue relative to the legislative process versus the ballot language process. Right now, MTC is leading on the Bay Area Housing, BAFA, Bay Area Housing Authority, Finance, thank you. And the challenge we're having there is that the way the legislation is structured, it does not require every county or major city to sign off on the final ballot language. So the legislation moved forward, declawing local agencies from being able to give further input on how that money gets spent. And again, just as a reminder, we're going to be 25 to 27% of the money even generated from that tax. But the way that tax is structured is that 20% would be a return, would be held by MTC, by BAFA. And of that money, if it's a, depending on how big the bonds ultimately are, we will be contributing as a region between $400 and $800 million to a regional pot, even though we're building housing and we've got a pipeline here like crazy. So I say all that only to make this point. I think as we look at legislation, it should be outcome driven. Not we're going to consolidate, or we're going to be the boss of you, or we're going to be the boss of them. We should have one ticket. We should. Everybody should be able to, we should be able to use our phones or whatever's in our pocket and just go to the door and say, open it, let me in. That's not complicated. We should be able to have one ticket. And we should be able to make sure that we're appropriately financing every agency so they have the ability to do that. That's an outcome. Consolidation is a power grab. That's not outcome driven. So what I would say, what I would really like to see is we concur with the outcomes and we demand that the inputs reflect the fact that we all have very different financing structures, and one of our challenges is we have a contract with BART. We are obligated, colleagues, I'll be gone from this, but you all are going to be paying this bill. We are obligated to pay BART, so we already have a very complex financing environment. Now, it doesn't mean, let me just say this, do I think MTC should have more coordination and more capacity to do that kind of work? 1,000%. They should. And yet, we need to make sure that we're able to provide the services that we're going to be charging people from this community to get on buses and light rail and BART. And so for me, it's all got to be outcome driven. There absolutely has to be a return to source and a fair and equitable way for issues to be raised. And one of the challenges with the most recent language is, and this is something that really concerns me, is that MTC wants the ability to be flexible in terms of how money gets divvied up 5, 10, 15 years from now. Now, that flexibility has not worked well for us. It's worked well for other players. And until the power dynamics are different, the language really matters. So I know Mayor Mahan will be there tomorrow, and I have every confidence that he's going to make these cases. But I think we have to be crystal clear in agreement about the outcomes we want. I really do think there should be one ticket. I do think that all of our schedules should be coordinated. I think that regions that are willing to make changes that include, prioritization for lights should be rewarded. Like, I think we have to think about how we incentivize people to do the right thing instead of just trying to move the ball, because I think all that will happen is we're all going to be fighting in 5 or 10 years if the language isn't thoughtful about what the customer needs, not what a couple of bureaucrats in any single agency think they need, because that's what this has felt like on occasion to me. I will just add one other thing. I think that the folks at MTC are very bright. I think they really do want to do the right thing. But I think all of our regional agencies have to be crystal clear that we want to do the right thing too, and we want to be able to move and provide services to the people in our community. In the 1990s, when we were making those cuts, I'll tell you one of our challenges with MTC is they said, look, we'd love to give you more money. I mean, I had this conversation with Steve Heminger. We'd love to give you more money, but you're not moving enough people. So the reason we're focused on BART and MTC and Muni is they're moving people. And my point to them was we would be moving people too if the standard for making contributions was who has the capacity to grow their ridership. As you and this incredible staff has demonstrated over the last year, that's us. Like, we have that capacity, and we should be really thinking about moving goods and services regionally. So anyway, thank you very much. You can tell I was bottled up for a bit. So I would like to just recommend that we are focused on the outcomes, that we are protective of assets and resources, that in fact we do in a meaningful way want to be collaborative, but that any flexibility in any legislation has an extremely high benchmark for changes, which includes the benchmark we have here for our own measure, which is, I think it's 2/3 or everybody but one has to agree. And the reason for that is we have to force people to have real and meaningful conversations with each other, because otherwise the system won't get better unless we're being really outcome driven. So that's my take. And are we taking an action on this tonight?
Yeah, if I may, the action was to approve this language for inclusion in the legislative program. What I'd like to suggest is if you are in agreement with this, I know there were some editorial changes that were requested. Say there is conceptual agreement, we'll work on changing that language, which will come back as part of the legislative program, rather than trying to do it at this meeting.
I think that's appropriate, colleagues, and I think that's really fair. I would also like to request that we craft a letter to MTC that explains the discussion on the board, and I'm happy if my colleagues are comfortable with it. I would obviously take in account all the questions and issues that were raised, but I think we have to be able to say we're focused on the following outcomes. We want to be protective of being able to deliver for local taxpayers. We want them to be aware of the contractual and other agreements we've made to the voters of our region, and to say we're all for, and I really am for, like, I do think we need one fare. Like, I don't want to hear about this pass, that pass. I don't want to hear it anymore. One ticket. If you're poor, you don't pay as much. Right. Let's not make it super complicated. Right. That the schedules be coordinated, and some of the higher goals they've set, and that any legislative language needs to be protective of making sure, inclusive of making sure that we really are including the 9 Bay Area counties or wherever they want to do this in terms of the language that gets included in any legislation. Because ambiguity works for a while until it doesn't.
I agree.
Okay. Are you all comfortable with that direction? I know that's a terribly complex motion. So I'm going to ask if we can restate. Do you have a question? Go ahead.
I would be supportive of that, including the suggestion for a letter, and I just want to make sure that's part of that. I couldn't agree more with the comments and the perspective that have been brought up. And at the same time, as you noted, We want to be outcome driven, and I hear this from staff, from the questions that I was asking and everything in the conversation, that we want to be collaborative and find ways to succeed and find ways to get to yes and to the outcome that we want, balancing that and that this is us really trying to move that forward in a constructive way.
I think that's fine. I just think we want to be honest and clear, and I don't want to surprise them any more than I want to be surprised by anybody else. Yeah. Okay, any last comments? I see a light. Is that Carmen?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just let you know I'm not going to be voting for this, even though you want to change the language to, I just don't, as Board Member Abe Koga had mentioned, that we didn't really get our fair share, and just that in itself, I don't trust them. To me, it's a power grab, and they want to take away our local control, and we need to keep that control, that local control. That's my opinion, and it's going to be competing with our measures that we have, our sales tax. So even though you mentioned you want to change the language to conform to what our wishes are, but even with that, I'm not going to be supporting that.
Thank you for that. So from, as a motion, what I would like to request is if somebody who, maybe what we do is, from a motion, we would ask that the language be changed in the documents that you presented based on feedback from a number of our members, including Mr. Director, Chairperson. What's your title now? King Pat Burt, Director. And that that it has a cover letter that is, I do think we do want to be collaborative. And again, I want to list some of the key outcomes that we're looking at, and also just an acknowledgement of the complexities of the financial realities that we live in the district, so that those are being considered as part of their considerations. Is that okay as a motion? Did I leave anything out that someone feels compelled about?
I just have a brief question. Would that letter come, hearing that there's an MTC meeting tomorrow, I'm just wondering about the timing of the letter. Would that come back with the language next month on the program?
I actually don't, I wouldn't want I wouldn't want to have a letter edited by the whole board. That sounds like scheduling with everybody, and that would make me pull my eyelashes out. But what I would request is that we can send a letter out, get people's feedback if they want to without violating the Brown Act. That would go under my signature, and that we don't need it for tomorrow. We need it for when this goes to the MTC's full board, which will probably be at the February 14th meeting.
I'm sorry. You were asking for the letter to come back before?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that we'll draft a letter, we'll send it out if board members want to edit or give feedback, but it would go under my signature. So ultimately, I would make a decision about whether or not it captures the entirety of the board's will and wishes. So we'll give people a couple days to give feedback to it, and then have it ready for the 14th of February, which is when I think this is being heard by MTC.
I think it's being held, my understanding is it'll be at the full commission meeting, which is on the third Wednesday.
Which is February 14th. Oh, no, wait, February 20, what is it? 28. Okay, but by that meeting.
By that meeting, okay.
Correct.
So it's
Okay.
not being heard this January, the 3rd?
I thought it
So
was
it's going to the legislative committee,
tomorrow.
and then it will go to the second, I believe, the second meeting in, I can't remember. But anyway, why don't we just make it a goal so that by the time it goes to the full board, we have a letter from us. Everybody here got 48 hours to see it. We'll get their feedback. I'll make the ultimate decision about whether or not it reflects the thoughts of the board. Is that okay? All right, so we have a motion. Who made it? Did I just do that? What's that? I will make that as a motion. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mayor. I have a second. Any other discussion? We're going to do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? And one no. Any abstentions? All right, thank you. That passes with a majority. Thank you all very, very much for the discussion. That was very helpful. All right. Almost lost my place. We are now moving to item 8, and this is items of concern and referral to the administration, and I'm going to look for items of referral.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. Earlier this afternoon, a group of us, Board of Directors, submitted an intent to submit a referral for the February meeting. And if you haven't looked at it yet, it's here on the dais as well. It's been emailed as well, as we went through the proper channels and had conversation with our VTA staff. And first and foremost, I really want to thank my colleagues who provided great input and collaboration, especially Chairwoman Chavez and board members Kamei and Davis and Jane. And for me, this is extremely important, not only as a council member for downtown, where the BART project is going to hopefully not impact our small businesses, but we need to get ready in case it does. And so I remember the day, I remember working as a council assistant with then Councilmember Carrasco, and the reason why myself and a group of other folks submitted this letter and we're hoping to submit a referral for the February meeting is I clearly remember being a council assistant for District 5, Councilmember Carrasco, and our local small businesses along the Alum Rock corridor, right, were heavily impacted by the BRT project. And, I just remember local businesses, small business owners who have been there for 30, 25 years, crying to us about losing their business because of the major construction project that was happening right in front of their business. And so I definitely do not want history to repeat itself, right? Especially since we are seeing a downtown San Jose and our greater downtown small business areas turn a corner. And so, I just want to make sure that we have we get ready to have a framework or a program, or we're just ready to make sure that what happened along Alum Rock Avenue doesn't happen all the way from the Alameda up to the 101. And so, as you could see in this letter, we've listed some organizations who we can have that conversation with and get going on a really solid plan, right? And these these organizations also work with our small businesses to grow and be vibrant and serve our community. And so, with that, I look forward to having a robust conversation with not only my colleagues, but our stakeholders in the future, since it's going to be a 10-year project, and we're hoping that we don't lose any businesses with BART project phase 2 coming in. So, not sure if any of my colleagues have any questions, or am I supposed to motion at this time, Chairperson?
I don't think you need a motion for items of referral. This is really a direction to staff.
Okay.
And I'm going to just let Carolyn give some quick feedback to the request.
Yes.
First of all, I really appreciate the comments, and I was in the. I remember taking over just coming on board to run engineering construction when the street was all dug up and it was just horrible when I was there. So I in the Alum Rock area, and the concerns that they have, and how it takes a long time, if ever. History never goes away, and that's what they're going to remember. So next month, we are planning on having a presentation about this, and I think at the same time, we'll talk about the engagement, exactly what you want in here, the engagement plan, in how we go forward in doing that. So I think it pairs well together, and we can have that discussion. So I really appreciate this coming forward, and the colleagues who also sent it forward as well.
Great, and of course, the organizations I listed, right? If colleagues have other organizations that we might have missed, but as you can imagine, we even included, right? For example, the Black Kitchen Cabinet. They're not necessarily a business-oriented organization, but they work with our small businesses in and around downtown San Jose. So I think it's important, right? And of course, the Alameda Business Association, et cetera, Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce, some good folks on there who couldn't tell us what we shouldn't be doing, so, or how we can do it better. So,
Great, thank you. Carmen, did you have a comment on
Yeah,
this?
I did for Carolyn. So I was wondering for a referral, if you could, maybe not a referral, but a highlight of our Milpitas Smart Shuttle services. If you can do that for the next board meeting, highlight some of our successes in Milpitas.
Yeah,
They're doing very well.
Yeah, and we talked to Morgan Hill yesterday as well. I had a meeting with the city manager, and Jay just left, but I think we could have a presentation regarding the various services that, the one
Yes, that would be
that we're
great.
funding, I think would be
Yeah.
really useful. And I think in the long run, we'd like to see sort of some metrics that can be similar across all of them. So, and I think some of that's true. So, yeah, I would think we should come back right now in the next month or two, yes.
Okay, great. And then the other one is, I know you, in your report, you mentioned about the 50% off VTA, BART, and all Bay Area Transit. I mean, I see many ads on our buses, so why not have this on our buses to let the folks know that there's this, 50% off?
Yeah, there is a campaign, a marketing campaign throughout the Bay Area. I know our folks have been fairly closely tied to that, but I'll get back to you on the specifics of what we're doing. There was supposed to be a specific campaign working with us as well because we're just joining it, and I don't know all those marketing efforts.
Yeah, it's just that, we want to get our fares up, and because I drive around town, and sometimes I see a lot of empty buses, so, just like the light rail. So, and that's what that's what we need to focus. We need to start getting those people in the buses and the mass transit. So,
Thank you, Carmen.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to share that there's been, the last couple months, discussion about need for a greater focus on station design review. And Director Jane, now alternate Jane, had been particularly concerned about this for Santa Clara, but it really applies to the other BART extension stations. And so we wanted to do a referral that that staff would return with a plan for meeting schedules for design review committees for each station and for the scope of those committees as well, so it's clear on what their range of issues that they have under their purview. And then we want to have some mechanism where the three different stations, four, had some way to be sharing their work and not be working in isolation. And so to look at setting up a subcommittee of a board member board or alternate member from each of those design review committees as a subcommittee to just periodically check in. And then also within the design review committees that at least one either board member or alternate would be a participant on those committees. So that's the request for a referral. And I would say that, I see Director Jane also would like to add to it because he's been intimate on this subject. The BART ad hoc really doesn't have the bandwidth to function as an oversight on the station design review. If the board wanted to have just the discussion of the scope and a referral back to the full board come out of that committee, perhaps it could be that, but I'm just trying to think through what would be the best way to flush out the parameters of how these committees would function.
So I'm going to have Suds weigh in, and then I have a recommendation.
Yeah, so I'd been very intimately involved with this design of the Santa Clara station, and it went from an above-ground concourse. We were looking at a below-ground concourse. We eventually seemed to have settled on an at-grade concourse, which is much easier for our customers, our users. I mean, there's no level transitions. So having the community be involved with those discussions, I think, led to a much better design of that station. And, now we want to look at people movement. And I know for the Santa Clara station, there was a full animation showing where there was congestion of people flow at the fare gates and things like that. So I want to continue that. But the clarification I wanted to make to Pat's comments was that we're noticing that for the ad hoc steering committee, we're having trouble scheduling those meetings. So I wanted to make it a little bit easier to get people to those meetings. And I know a number of directors have staff. So maybe, I don't know if it's within the bylaws of VTA, but to maybe designate a staff person that could attend in lieu of the director attending this, the station design committees, the design review committees. It's not a voting body or anything, but it's just you have these station design committees with board representation. Could be an alternate board member or a full board member, or maybe one of the board member staff people, because we're having trouble scheduling these meetings. And so that was sort of my proposed solution to that. I don't know if it fits within the
Your
bylaw.
proposed solution, but these are two separate bodies that you want?
So there's two bodies. One would be the Station Design Committee, the DRC, that would be local representatives of that station area. And then to make sure, because right now the station design committees don't have a board member involved. So they don't feel like they have a lot of agency to make suggestions to the board. So the DRCs, I'm asking that there's a board representative there, and then there's an ad hoc committee of just the board representatives that meet maybe quarterly to exchange ideas between stations.
So what I'd like to do is, if it's okay, first of all, let me just say, I think this is born out of a frustration of not having quorum and people not feeling responded to. And Suds, I think you feeling like you're kind of hitting a wall. I know that whenever we put together committees, ad hoc or otherwise, there's a bunch of tension around Brown Act, and I can just feel Evelyn's eyes on me right now, like worried about that. And because we put some ad hoc committees, and by the way, we're still going to seat one more board committee, what I would like to do is have Carolyn and the team accept the referral and come back with some recommended how we go forward, and have those recommendations come back to the full board so that you don't feel ignored, but it gives them a chance to really digest the problems that you're raising and come back with some options for solutions, because I think they're very real. I'm very supportive of it. I think this is the right direction. I just want to give them a chance to think about the best way to operationalize it. Is that all right with you all? Okay. All right. So any other referrals that are dying to pop out? Okay, we're keeping them popped in. All right, there we go. Any announcements that anybody wants to make?
I have one.
All right, Carmen?
So the mayor's the conference of the mayor's conference, national conference is this next week. So Matt, will you be going? Okay, cool. I'll see you there. So who else? The other mayors.
Where is it? All right, well, have a
Washington,
good
D.C.
time. We'll want postcards.
Washington, D.C.
All right, any other announcements? Seeing none, we don't have any. We are going to skip 8.3 because we didn't run out earlier. We're going to now go to closed session, colleagues. We're going to go into the back room because I think the other room's being used. So I don't want to lose you all. We're going to go to closed session. We anticipate this to be about 30 to 40 minutes. Yes? You're only... Oh, we're going to be faster than you today. All right, we'll see you back.
Recording stopped.
Thank you.
fun? Yeah. Yeah, we're just getting started.
And then it was, but it was contradictory too. Because you had one person that you just say, oh, but then it was just like everybody else. Then actually everybody wanted to say this. There's a real issue. That's the story that you guys, it's classic yellow journalism. So you're just trying to fill the spot. Like that, that's it. I need to say something. It couldn't fit in the cycle. That's good. That's good.
Oh, shoot. Sorry, Elaine.
So if you guys want to do it,
You sent me all the emails and I sent out like a big list. Right, and I sent out this email that basically was like, you need to respond to this or sign up. If you don't, I'm not going to include you. Is there like a paid tier for Action Network?
Action Network does have paid tiers. No, I think we can get everything we need from the free tier.
Okay. Tell me when we're back to order.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. We're reconvening our VTA board meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to our council to give a report out.
I can report out on 9.1A and 9.1B, and the board did not take any reportable actions tonight on those two items, and I'll turn the other one to you, Chair.
And for 9.C and D, we took no reportable actions. Thank you. Thank you all.